is the U.S. becoming a dystopia? I mean, it's something that you gotta ask as we watch all these videos about like all the things the U.S. is behind and continues to fall behind.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, graphs of like US progression kind of go like, oh, yes, very good. And then now they're just flat. And like if you compare it to like European counterparts, the European ones might not have been that big in like the 80s, but they're still going up, 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 up. So that leads to being a dystopia.
Is it a dystopia? I mean, it is to the point where there's just tons of homeless people on the street,
Yeah.
and then all the rich people live up in like the hills of LA or something like that. So it's getting there. Let's check it out. Here we go.
By the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support my channel and get early access to every video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. Once upon a time, the human race had a dream. A vision of the future where we had evolved beyond our petty military conflicts, where every human was guaranteed equal rights, where we had time to spend with friends and family, to pursue hobbies and trades, and to do meaningful work that we enjoyed, not because we had to, but because tedious, unpleasant labor had been handed off to automated systems, leaving humans the time to just live, to really experience what life is all about.
And instead of that, thus far, what we've seen is they get robots, they just fire everybody, and since there's no social safety nets, they just become super poor.
AI stuff that's kind of starting off now is replacing jobs that you would think that would be better deserved for. I mean, like you've seen like AI like music stuff coming out now, and like
writing scripts for movies, stuff like that, making art,
Mm-hmm.
like the most human things that you can do, arts, they're having AI do it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We approach the year 2022. I think it's safe to say that vision is no closer today than it was 100 years ago.
And also, like leading into the dystopian thing, since AI isn't cheaper than hiring Indian workers to do jobs, well, a lot of American companies are just hiring people from like India instead of their own people. And then once the AI becomes cheaper than Indians, they'll just get rid of all the Indians.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be the whole Trump's whole thing is we're gonna bring back jobs to America, and he's trying to make deals to do that, but those companies aren't going to do that until the AI is, like you said, cheaper than the Indians. We're like, okay, we can come back to America now. Give us some tax breaks for our building, and then we'll just fill it with robots.
Yep.
In fact, the consensus seems to have shifted away from this utopian vision of the future and towards something much less pleasant. In this episode, we're going to attempt to analyze some trends in the United States as we creep ever closer to techno-dystopia. There's a trend in modern entertainment. We used to see a lot of optimistic movies and TV shows, where the future was depicted as bright, happy, and peaceful.
That's interesting.
There were exceptions, of course, but the general feeling towards the far future was one of hope. These days, that's no longer the case. Scroll through any list of movies and TV and you'll notice a pattern. Just about every bit of media dealing with the future now has a decidedly pessimistic tone. The Hunger Games, The Maze Runner, Divergent, Oblivion, Altered Carbon, Snowpiercer, The Expanse. Even kid-friendly movies like WALL-E have a deeply dystopian undertone. What's behind this trend? Well, if you take a look around, it shouldn't be hard to find the catalyst. People today are more unsure about the future than at perhaps any point in modern history. Every day we wake up and there's a new catastrophe. Massive wildfires, record-breaking heat waves, disappearing glaciers, melting permafrost, political instability, new diseases. People are afraid. And one way we like to cope with our fear and uncertainty is by turning off and watching a movie. Dystopian fiction is increasingly common these days for a couple of reasons. First, it's weirdly comforting. We can watch Snowpiercer and say, well, at least my life isn't that bad. Another reason is that film and television offer us a way to engage with modern problems in a way that feels less traumatic. We can watch Altered Carbon, recognize the problems that mirror those in our own time, and come away thinking, yeah, rapidly increasing inequality is a problem we need to address. It's a more pleasant experience than watching a documentary about collapsing ecosystems and runaway climate change. But it brings those same issues to mind. People like to relate to what they're watching, even if the subject matter is unpleasant. In a way, dystopian fiction performs a useful service in this regard. People who would otherwise ignore the news and the challenges we face are forced to see the similarities between these fictional worlds and the one we inhabit.
I mean, how how aren't we just barreling towards these things? You have all of these glaring problems that like the experts and like 99% of the experts say, yeah, this is a huge problem, and if we don't face it, all these terrible things are going to happen. But then you have entire political parties, especially in the US, entire political parties, and some people from the only opposing political party not taking it seriously and taking tons of money from the oil industry.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just like don't feel the need for any change.
And now it's not even like, we're fine. It's shut up. That's just fake news. Climate change, that's just fake.
Denial.
It's just like crazy. It's denial, and then it's aggressively fighting back against it.
But simply recognizing the problems doesn't do
gosh,
much
he just
except
punches
make
with
the
the
average
hammer,
person we
man.
inhabit.
For
But
what
simply
reason?
recognizing the problems doesn't do much except make the average
You
person
got him right in the
miserable.
stomach.
We often feel powerless in the face of monstrous crises like climate change and inequality that exceeds that of the Gilded Age. But we're not as helpless as we might feel. We'll get to that a bit later. But first, we need to
Did he
take a
get some
look at where
plastic
the US
surgery?
stands.
What do you mean? Because he's like
We'll-
this?
He's got the like puffy.
You know,
He's got some injections, I think.
I may look like Lex Luthor, but I'm a nice guy, I swear.
Get to that a bit later. But first, we need to take a look at where the US stands on the dystopia timeline. Okay, picture a generic near-future dystopia. What do you see? Grimy cities, pollution, crushing poverty juxtaposed against glistening neon towers, and usually a handful of massive, all-powerful corporations running the show. That description may already be ringing alarm bells in your head, but let's break it down a bit. Good dystopian fiction usually relies on a handful of tropes. Some kind of environmental collapse, absurd levels of wealth inequality, and powerful technocrats ruining lives and often the planet to fund their empire and their megalomania. Let's evaluate the United States based on these three factors. We'll
Okay.
start with environmental issues. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know by now that climate change is happening, and it's not looking good. The fallout from the rapid
We
warming...
should. I wish we had a ability. Maybe we can, if we remember to edit this, throw on a list of all the Republicans that take donations from one of the large energy companies. Wow, it's all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, the control of the government right now is not in favor of believing that climate change is even real.
If you go on social media too, I mean, all of the social medias, whether that's from money getting thrown around, they're all right-wing slanted. All of them. And that goes towards this anti-climate change stuff.
caused mainly by human activity, will be severe, and it's already begun. As of writing this script, Greece has been burning for over a week and is
I
showing
remember
no
that.
signs of stopping. Thousands of people
That
have
was
had to
right after I
evacuate
went
under
there.
red skies, blistering heat, and suffocating smoke. Other countries face similar conditions, as we saw in Australia not too long ago. Coastal regions face unprecedented flooding, as I saw firsthand while shooting a documentary in the Marshall Islands. We're beginning to see the first climate refugees as entire regions become uninhabitable. The IPCC, an international group at the forefront of climate research, has just put out their most recent paper, and it's shocking. You may be thinking, yeah, I've heard this before. It's true. The entire scientific community has been begging policymakers to listen for decades. But guess what?
Money's more
It's
important.
looking like it's too late. The new report is full of data that even the experts didn't
That's
expect.
one of the dystopian movies. The whole premise of it, not listening to climate change. The one with Jake
look
Gyllenhaal. Oh yeah, that's the newer one.
Yeah,
But that's like
Day After
something.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah. I was thinking of Edge of Tomorrow, but that's a different
That's
movie.
the one where he dies over and
yeah,
over.
yeah.
At least not so soon. Glaciers are melting at rates that should be happening at higher levels of warming. Permafrost is melting at rates climate scientists didn't expect we'd see for another 70 years. Flooding exceeds expectations.
I don't know. Hopefully you guys that don't watch Joe Rogan because he's one of the dumbest guys on the planet, but it was just something I saw about him. He saw an article about climate change and he saw this graph, and the graph made it look like it went up and then it fell way down. He's like, actually, we're in a cooling period. And then if he would have read the article, it would have said, actually, this tiny little spike here at the end, this is like the worst spike there's ever been. And the last time there was a spike like that, there was a mass extinction. That's how easy it is to convince so many people.
Joe Rogan is like the prime, like
Average American.
Yeah, like ignorant average American who like seems like he's kind of willing to learn, but always listens to the most like extravagant voice out there for the information and trusts just what people tell him versus actually figuring
Yeah.
out things himself. He just listens.
Or he'll go read some headlines to like confirm his bias. And it's interesting because he had Mel Gibson, another notorious smart guy, on. And Mel Gibson was like, this climate change stuff. And he's like, they keep saying that if the ice caps melt, that the water's gonna rise, but how does that work? I mean, if I have a glass full of ice and it melts, it doesn't overflow the cup.
If you had a glass of ice or a glass of water and then the ice was on the side of the cup and
You
then
put
it
it
melted
in.
in, then yeah.
That was the big argument there, and that's been like debunked for like a decade
Yeah.
by people that have a tiny bit of common sense.
Climate scientists didn't expect we'd see for another 70 years. Flooding exceeds expectations, as do droughts, wildfires, and extreme weather. The bottom line is that 1.5 degrees of warming, which has been the number scientists have urged us to try to stay below, is going to produce consequences that look more like 3 degrees of warming. The climate crisis is accelerating. We can no longer ignore the fallout. It's only going to get worse. Now, it's only dystopian if we refuse to adapt and mitigate the fallout, right? Surely world leaders are working tirelessly to solve the problem.
Oh, I bet.
Come on, you should know better than that. Without fail, world leaders are refusing to take sufficiently radical steps to stave off the worst effects of climate change. In fact, here in the US, the current administration is carrying on with business as usual, while Republicans will openly deny climate change to muddy the waters and keep their corporate
What a
donors
guy.
happy. Plenty of well-meaning Americans
The
believe
guy who fled his state now twice when there was a climate disaster.
the Democrats actually care. They do not.
What a goofy
While they
looking
pay
prick.
lip service to long-established science, the Democrats are beholden to the same corporate interests as their more repugnant colleagues. For example, Biden recently said, "We can't wait to tackle the climate crisis. The signs are unmistakable, the science is undeniable, and the cost of inaction keeps mounting." That's nice. And yet, approvals for oil drilling are on track to reach their highest level since George W. Bush was president. A politician's words don't mean anything
What the
if they
frack?
constantly act in a way that contradicts their flowery language. The situation is pretty grim. Politicians understand this, but they are invested, often literally, in the preservation of the status quo which benefits them and the rest of the rich and powerful. Read the IPCC report for yourself. I've left a link in the description. Voting for the less awful presidential candidate isn't enough anymore. While climate change is definitely the most pressing issue facing our species, and many other species, dystopian fiction often focuses on smaller-scale, human-centric problems. One of the most quintessential of these is the issue of rampant inequality, the wealthy looking down on the unwashed masses from their glittering towers. In Altered Carbon, the rich have found a way to essentially become immortal, the final hurdle for the elite, while the poor are left to suffer and die far below the cloud-top utopias of society's upper crust. The quest
And is
for
that not like that Mumbai tower? When we were in Mumbai, we saw the most expensive house ever, the Indian billionaire living there, just way up in this fancy tower. And then you go like 5 miles down the street and there's like the world's largest slum.
The Ambani family or whatever the heck it is, and that is literally a whole skyscraper dedicated to one family. And next Mumbai itself was 50% slums or whatever the heck it was.
I mean, I feel like India and some other like Southeast Asian countries are going to be like the prime examples of dystopian capitalism because they never had the FDR New Deal era like the United States had. They're just jumping straight into wealth disparity like immediately.
I think Tucker Carlson just said though that FDR's right-hand man was a Soviet spy though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I don't know if I like
Dang.
FDR anymore.
Dang, okay, yeah. I don't like FDR either. Get him out of here.
Reality is something that our own billionaires are absolutely pursuing. There's one startup which offers plasma transfusions from the blood of young people in an effort to slow the aging process. Some of the more dedicated elite, like PayPal founder Peter Thiel, routinely spend
He's a
$40,000 per quarter for blood transfusions from 18-year-olds. We also have the absurdly wealthy going on little joyrides to space, just because they feel like it. Jeff Bezos spent $5.5 billion to spend 11
billionaires
minutes as
so
far above the
weird?
poor people as he could
Why are
possibly
they
get.
always weird?
Meanwhile, his workers, who do the actual labor that produces Amazon's profits, face some of the most inhumane conditions in the country. To get a sense of just how absurdly
$5
rich these
billion
people are,
to
consider
get a
this. There was one open
Pocket
seat
change.
on the flight. The person who had the winning bid, nearly $28 million, canceled because of a scheduling conflict. Can you imagine that? Sorry, can't make it to my $28 million space flight, something came up. Bezos has long been the subject of intense criticism from
That
the
guy's
left,
a lizard,
but
I'm
he's
sorry.
really done it now.
He's a
Even
reptilian.
older, more conservative people saw this little stunt as an obscene waste of money. In a way, I'm glad it happened.
And then you have the
It is
media being
nearly
like, "Oh my
impossible for people to
gosh,
understand
isn't that
just how
cool?"
much money our modern-day robber barons have hoarded. Watching Jeff Bezos blow $5.5 billion on an 11-minute joyride helps put it in perspective. That $5.5 billion doesn't even put a dent in his wealth. While it's easy to point at the richest handful of people on Earth and say, bad, there is still tremendous inequality several rungs below them. For example, Jamel Brown, a hospital janitor in Missouri, was awarded Employee of the Month after contracting COVID trying to
Oh.
keep other people safe. For his efforts, he was given a $6 voucher to the hospital cafeteria. Meanwhile,
$6. That's a meritocracy right there. If you work hard and become the best employee, you'll get rewards.
With like very marginal things.
Half your hourly wage.
25-cent raise.
who has likely never
If you're
set foot on
lucky.
the premises, got a 13% raise to $30.5 million. This
I don't know if you guys saw, I mean, it probably happened to the European billionaires in any country like that, but the billionaires over COVID, when most people lost a huge chunk of their money, made trillions of dollars.
That was one thing we did was like look at the Forbes list of the richest people, and so many of the graphs shot up so
I
high.
mean, the biggest Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they made hundreds of billions of dollars.
How does that make sense? How can a global economy stagnate and people not be able to work, and governments even like economies dropping because they have to help out the people? How can they make so much money?
What we were taught in school is that the economy is like a natural force. It's just humans don't make any difference, and somehow the economy stopped. Billionaires went like this. Everyone else went like this, and then it just stayed that way after the fact.
And then these people decided to raise the prices on the people who are down here.
Everything went up after COVID. All the prices. It's insane.
executive
Oh, we have to because it's inflation. It's just too much to produce all this stuff.
receives 1,000 times the compensation of workers society called essential for 6 months and then cast aside. Jamel Brown, once considered an essential worker, can't afford his own apartment and hasn't gotten a raise in 2 years. Absurd, offensive stories like these really help to drive the point home for average Americans. Our lives continue to get worse while the already rich continue to get richer. Here's another example. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, went on the record to say that Americans will have to work longer and make risky investments in order to retire. People like
Asset manager. They just throw around money and get more money for it.
Just fake money.
Fink are the same ones who say the economy is doing great and anyone who works hard can succeed. Yet here he is with a tacit admission that people can't get by on the same number of years of work as their parents or grandparents. People in today's job market simply aren't paid enough money to save for retirement. But if you want to get really dystopian, let's take a look at how the state treats its least fortunate. This video was taken in Venice Beach. Here you can
Okay, before we get into this, just adding the up-to-date context, Donald Trump just basically declared war on homeless people in D.C. and sent out he put the city on lockdown to, I don't know what he's going to do with them, but he's getting them out of the streets.
They always just, nuts. They
Oh,
always
no.
99% of you know.
They always just throw them somewhere. They're like, we got to get rid of them. And then they just somehow disappear. Where do they all go?
Yeah. It's weird for them to create these restrictions of oh, we don't want you to be homeless, so we're gonna make benches uncomfortable to sit on, and we're gonna not let you be in this area. But then it's Where are they gonna go?
Yeah, where are the drug rehabilitation centers to help them get off of their addictions?
Maybe offer them a
and
job.
social housing, ways to like help them get on their feet.
But social housing doesn't work
Now that's communism.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
But if you want to get really dystopian, let's take here you can see a few people in a makeshift shelter, not bothering anyone, with nowhere else to go, being forcibly evicted by police
pointing
armed with assault
guns at
rifles.
them.
Yeah,
As the
huge
country
guns
faces a
too.
wave of evictions unlike anything we've ever seen, remember this video. This is how the homeless are treated. Over 30 million Americans are facing homelessness because their savings were destroyed by the pandemic. 30 million. Inequality in the United States now exceeds even that of the Gilded Age, the most extreme disparity in the country's history. With
That's
every
insane.
crisis, the rich get richer.
The Gilded Age, where we needed Teddy Roosevelt to come and trust bust all these dang big corporations and monopolies and billionaires to take them down. But when are we ever going to get? We're not going to get a Theodore Roosevelt within today. We're not going to.
I don't think it's possible with social media because people back in that time, they knew their conditions were bad. And if they saw a glimpse of like a rich person, they're like, wait, why don't I have that? Versus nowadays, people are just told, oh, it's not actually that bad. You're doing fine. It's these other things that are causing your issues.
The biggest thing Americans love to say is, well, it's not as bad as these other countries. Why do you think all these Mexicans and all these people from other countries are trying to come here? Because it's the best here. It's crazy. I mean, they just have everybody fooled.
Those who consider themselves middle class lose everything, and the poor fall deeper and deeper into crushing poverty. The final trope in our dystopia comparison is the ever-present hand of the technocrats and the giant corporations. I think it should go without saying that this country is run by corporations in all but name. Why haven't we acted on climate change? Because Exxon has lobbied against it for decades, despite being among the first ones to realize their activity would cause problems down the line.
Oh.
They fund both parties. So does the military-industrial
The oil
complex,
industry is
companies
just
like
evil.
Lockheed, Boeing, and Raytheon. Why do you think we're always involved in low-level wars? It's absurdly profitable for these companies. Why don't we have universal healthcare like every other industrialized nation? Because the insurance and pharmaceutical companies make massive donations to both Republicans and Democrats. Then you've got the mega corporations like Amazon, Google, and Disney. Want to buy something? Amazon has it cheaper. Streaming video? Amazon has it. Delivery? Amazon. Groceries? Amazon. Spaceflight? Apparently, if you have $28 million...
It's starting to sound like a monopoly.
I mean, people were like, oh, so scared when like, oh, Disney's buying Star Wars. Oh, Disney's buying Marvel stuff now. And now people just like forgot about it. And now they're like, oh, I can watch everything on Disney Plus now. It's like, yeah, you can. But now it's a massive corporation has more power.
All of the like companies in all the different industries, they're just consolidating. They're just buying up all the other competition. And Amazon will just undercut stores on their website and then just buy them.
If there weren't Chinese versions of like delivery things like a Temu, they would have bought that for sure.
It's crazy. It's crazy that so many times there's like something that's going out. Like ChatGPT, they were investing billions of dollars into that. And then China came out with their own version that was apparently like just as good. And it was like a fraction of the cost to make. The money that they just throw around because they can in America is just so ridiculous.
Disney is slowly consuming all other media companies and IPs. Google dominates web traffic. This country is run by corporations, and they want to make sure it stays that way. But let's talk about the really dystopian stuff. There's a Nevada bill up for consideration that would allow tech companies to create their own cities, complete with governments, the right...
What does that sound like to you?
I'm not
The
sure.
Philippines.
Oh, yeah. True. Yeah, we live here in the Philippines.
Companies make their own cities
Yeah.
in the capital city. They'll just buy up a plot of land and then just make these like business districts that are just their own city. They owned all the condos, they owned all the stores, they own everything.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
to develop their own taxation and essentially equal power to traditional counties. That's exactly as terrifying as it sounds. Your job would have complete control over your life, determining what you can and can't do, how little they're allowed to pay you, how much you owe them in taxes. You
But it looks cool to me because they have a futuristic car driving on the bottom of the screen there on that road, so I think it's pretty good.
There'll be cool TikToks about it. People walking down the street showing the cool buildings.
Can't do. How little they're allowed to pay you. How much you owe them in taxes. We have this weird fixation on the private sector, especially tech, in the US, and it's going to get us into real trouble. So-called industry leaders like Bill Gates also enjoy essentially limitless positive press for even their most alarming projects. For example, Gates wants to shoot dust into the atmosphere to block the sun. If that sounds familiar, well, it just so happens to be the catalyst for one of our dystopian movies. Then there's every internet dweeb's favorite oligarch, Elon Musk.
Gosh.
Neuralink, the company determined to put a computer chip in your brain, will be starting human trials in the very near future. And Musk has just announced that SpaceX will launch a satellite into space with the purpose of displaying advertisements. Any interested parties will be able to buy ad space with crypto. Soon, even the night sky will not offer an escape from the intrusion of capital. So, is the US becoming a dystopia? Our climate is collapsing, inequality is at its worst level ever, our politicians are corrupt and in the pocket of massive corporations, millions of Americans are on the brink of eviction, at which point they will be threatened with state violence, tech startups may soon have their own autonomous cities where they will have complete control over the inhabitants, we've got space billboards on the way, and people are lining up to get microchipped by the world's least responsible Twitter troll.
Maybe not
I
anymore.
don't think it's a stretch to say that the US is not becoming a dystopia.
Made some mistakes.
It already is one. We just don't have the flying cars or cyberpunk aesthetics. So, what can average people do about this? I'm not going to lie. We face some serious problems, including the biggest one humanity has ever faced. But we're never powerless. The best thing you can possibly do is get involved somewhere. Every little bit helps. Want to organize your workplace for better
Trump
conditions?
Will send the
Join the
National Guard in
IWW
to, get rid of all the protesters.
or another union applicable to your field. Want to build political power? Join an organizing group or a socialist party. Start small. See if there's something you can do to help your neighbors. Look around to see if you can find a local mutual aid effort. Building community resilience is critical to weathering crises. A group of people working together is much stronger than a bunch of isolated strangers. If you like to read, start a reading group. Introduce people to anti-capitalist ideas and help them learn about alternatives. If you're good at graphic design, see if your local union, Socialist Party branch, or DSA chapter needs help producing posters or flyers.
How about staring at a video about problems in the US and giving our thoughts on it and hopefully reaching random people on YouTube?
We're spreading the word.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we kind of get the gist of the end here. It's to, like, you know, make a movement, do something. And people are trying to do that in the US, and look at the crackdown that's happening.
It's an interesting thing in like Europe, like in the past when I had seen like, well, there's a lot of protests in Europe, and I was always so confused why people, so many people,
France.
yeah, why like so many people protest, and it'd be like over such small things. But then like you see stuff like this, and it's like, oh, the reason I thought that is such a weird thing is just because it's not possible in the U.S. because even protesting over big things led to really bad results.
And not to mention that when those bad results happen, like the fights between the cops and people getting killed and random white kids going and shooting people and then not getting convicted, the public just turns against them completely.
Because as soon as there's a little bit of violence, it's like, oh, okay, never mind, it's bad.
And usually the cops are the ones that start the violence because they're like...
Antifa, you mean?
It's Antifa, sorry. Definitely not the police. But the thing about Europe, the thing that I love about the protests they do is that they show the government that they're the ones in control.
Yeah, I applaud Europe for doing that. And I mean, not necessarily Europe, possibly Europe in the future, but when we were in Georgia for a while and when Russia invaded Ukraine, the government was kind of like on the fence about who they wanted to support. And the people of Georgia hate Russia because they took some of their land the same way they're doing to Ukraine. And they protested, sorry, I got 30 seconds here. They protested to say, like, government, you can't support that. And they would do it multiple days.
They did it for like weeks, every single night.
I think they still do it.
I mean, it's pretty cool to see that. It just doesn't happen in the U.S. People are too distracted by just the small things.
It's a dystopia.
It is. I mean, people are willing to just keep paying the elevated Starbucks price every time it goes up. I mean, those drinks are getting up to like $8, and they're just like,
That's dystopian.
Blade Runner coming soon.